Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rahmat Empowerment Wala here, the host of the interview podcast series Empowering Minds. The objective of this platform is to call upon such prestigious guests who haven't just explored their own mindset, but they are trying to empower other minds too. So, to serve the purpose, we have with us today, and rather tonight, it's Jason Grant from London. So, we are very happy that we have Jason has given us the time and he has shown his presence here in Palming Minds. Let's welcome Jason. Hi, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you, Rahmat, for having me. And thanks for everyone else for tuning in and listening to what I've got to say. Hopefully, we're going to have a fantastic conversation and I can share some useful insights and tips maybe for the audiences.
Really, inshallah. Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. And Jason, first of all, I would like to, you are from London, right?
I am actually originally from Bosnia. I came to
Okay.
London in 1995 as a refugee from Bosnia. So, my journey is such that I've been living in UK 28 years now, but I'm originally from Bosnia. But having lived in Britain for so long, I feel both Bosnian and British. Yeah. So.
Wonderful. So you enjoy both the nationalities, or
Well, both have got pros and cons, and nowadays we actually see a lot of people have multiple passports and multiple nationalities, either through choice or through circumstances, or maybe a little bit of both. In my case, it's a little bit of both. So, over the years, I've learned to embrace both nationalities and both kind of identities. And make the most of both, really. Yeah.
wonderful. Jason, walk us through your professional journey in a brief.
Yeah, sure. So I studied, always been interested in computers since discovering them around the age of 8 or 9. I ended up in a computer workshop in ex-Yugoslavia around about the age of 8 or 9, and somebody gave me a piece of paper to type into a computer, and that was a computer program that I first wrote, and it was just like a thing that ended up moving a pixel around the screen, and that's all it did. But I was so fascinated by that I said, like, whatever this is, I want to do more and more of this. And then I was always also interested in mathematics and sciences and exploration of cosmos. I was reading early on during the war in Bosnia, I was reading the book Cosmos by Carl Sagan, which spoke a lot about different types of forces and rules of the universe that exist in physics and maths and so on. And I realized through reading lots of other books that those rules apply to things like engineering, architecture, making planes, and all sorts of objects, and even art. But there's like art of mathematics of art, and the way the artists compose pictures. Certainly in Islamic art, uh, the Islamic art is fractal art, and it's all mathematically based. So all these things interested me from early on. And then when I came to UK, I realized computers here were, even back in the mid 90s, were present in every household. So I just continued to explore and learn about them, and now they were being connected to the internet. So I pursued further studies of maths and computer science and business information systems, and master's degree, and then started my career working as a full stack developer, web developer, back in the day when internet didn't even have pictures, let alone all this kind of streaming video and 3D virtual reality and social media and stuff like that. So it was quite a feat of accomplishment to put a web page up on the internet, or a website together back then. But things started developing more and more, and I moved into something called user experience design, which is more being like an architect for bigger online systems like e-commerce systems and banking systems and so on. And then eventually I started working on digital government services here in UK, which was the first precedent towards putting government into digital sphere. So you can apply for a passport online, or apply like extended driving license, or do lots of different things that are related to the government online, and that started spreading worldwide. Lots of other governments embraced that, and really for 20 years I've been working in that sphere of digital transformation and helping companies go from physical processes to digital processes, and designing apps and software and platforms, and coaching people in design and design thinking and ways to innovate and transform. And nowadays I'm a lot more involved in what they call like moonshot projects, where we're looking at long-term innovation for how future technologies such as AI, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and all sorts of different protocols can be utilized to further enable people to do more, better, and with less money. Yeah.
Wonderful, Jason. Okay, just I wanted to ask you, learning programming, is it required any certain type of mindset, any special intelligence? Because I've been learning programming and coding for last 4 or 5 months, but I'm really feeling like it's really hard. I'm not grasping the concepts much, even though I practice a little, but I think I'm not very grasping those concepts very easily. So it require any special intellect or something?
It does require logical intelligence, and I mean, in the logical intelligence is encompassed some sort of like mathematical intelligence, or intelligence related to numbers. Okay. Um, Programming is very, very powerful way to think and operate in the world, because there are rules of, if I close my eyes, I can't see something, right? If I open, I can see, right? So there's a lot of reality that we observe and experience day to day is actually sets of rules and conditional logic that, if the door is closed in the house, it's likely to be warmer and the air is not going to circulate. If the door is open, it might be colder and the air will circulate. So all these kind of things, really, like, programming is, some of the key words in programming are if, then, and else. Okay. If some condition is met, then you do this. Otherwise, else, you do this other thing. Okay. So that covers a lot of programming. And that there's ways to loop through things. If you've got a set of parameters or values that you want to go and loop through, and usually display them on the screen or do something else to them, it's a common thing to do in programming. And you write functions that create, that do certain specific things. And it's really nice way to organize thoughts, processes, sequences, conditions, rules, and logic in a way that can be both executed and tested and expanded on and modularized and so on. So I really love programming, applying rules of programming to lots of other aspects of life, not just kind of calculations, but also more kind of fuzzy areas like organizing my day-to-day life, or tracking emotional states, or doing like a personal diary and analyzing lots of data for insights and so on.
Okay, so you said you learned programming when computer was completely looked different there back then. So now it's a different situation. So
Mhm,
today, if someone wants to start learning programming and coding,
mhm.
what would you suggest? How should he or she pursue that?
Um, that's a very good question, actually, and I'm not even sure that I have the best answer for that, because back in the day when I started learning computer programming, there was maybe like couple of languages that were in operation, in circulation. And so there wasn't really that much choice. Nowadays, there's so much choice of different languages and different ways of programming that it's hard to even know where to begin. Okay. However, I think it's wise to learn the essentials of programming and what kind of makes every programming in any language possible. So what I said about like conditional logic, if then else, that's essential. Writing functions and looping through things, that's part of every programming script. And the way that's organized in one program compared to the other is slightly different, but you're still using the same logical, let's say, operands or approaches. So learning those core programming essentials, irrespective of any language, will help you understand what programming is and how it works and why it's like that. And then when you grasp that, then you can understand how to program in different languages and pick the languages that you want to program for. It's similar to languages that we speak through. Like every language commonly has nouns, verbs, and attributes and so on. So and pronouns and stuff like that. So as you learn those, you can better understand that to construct sentences and meanings, you will use combinations of those types of words. And as you then expand your vocabulary, you can construct more and more impactful and meaningful and useful sentences for what you want to say and do.
Okay. So now we have AI with us. We have ChatGPT, we have Copilot, and other sort of these things. And Devin, we have heard so much about this thing.
Mhm.
So now, do you think that traditional coding and programming has less relevancy, or you don't think like that?
I think a lot of my answers to your questions like this will be both yes and no. Uh, the traditional coding has less relevancy, yes, because a lot of the work or heavy lifting or kind of the boring stuff can be automatically and quickly done by the LLMs, large language models, and pretty well, depending on how you construct your queries. They'll get them done first time and very quickly and very well, maybe like probably better than what even like a well experienced programmer might be able to do. So yes, in that sense, and no, in the sense that unless the person operating these things or querying these things, unless they don't know these core uh, computer programming and software engineering principles, they'll be giving the LLM too much to do in one query. So if you give it like a quick query, like or prompt to say, build me an app that monitors my well-being, right? It just is not going to do any good job. But if you give it prompts to build modules and building blocks of that app bit by bit, and you act as a architect for the app, then it's going to do a good job. But then you have to have the skills to understand how to put it all together and keep it sort of built in your system, and use the Copilot or ChatGPT or Devin or whatever you're using to basically work for you while you're being like a architectural manager of this app and making sure that it's working the way you want it to work, as opposed to the way the AI is giving it to you without really understanding fully what is it that you really want and what's really needed out there in the world. So there's yes and no aspect to the answer of that question. Yeah.
So what I understood is you still need a programmer, a coder who understands the logics and reasonings. Then you can build a project from these LLMs, right?
Yeah, correct. I mean, in principle, an LLM will be able to build an app But and I've seen lots of demos that like, oh, this LLM built me an app, blah blah. And then when I look at them and you see what the output has been, it's very much like that's not really a useful thing, or it doesn't really work that well, or it's not very comprehensive. So today's users or people expect a lot more comprehensive products than some sort of like a demo thing. uh, so yeah, LLM can build you a demo app, but that is not a commercial product. You're not going to make money from it. It's not going to be very useful to anyone out there in the real world. To make something that's useful, commercial, usable, etc., it has to be governed and architected and overviewed by a human who can use the AI to sort of shape and mold that bigger app and proposition into something that makes sense.
Wonderful. So when someone is has started learning, so he or she should learn programming and coding, and he or she should also learn how to incorporate it with LLMs at the same time, right? So that's
So
how he or she can, cope with the technology, emerging technologies.
okay, so this is all correlated with something called metacognition and how we learn, and um, you can use LLM to help you learn coding itself. So you can ask it questions. Okay, why is this particularly needed? And it will explain to you so that you can understand. You can even prompt it to write you code in a way that it also explains each line and why it's put it there. I've never tried this, but I'm pretty sure that it can do this. Um, and then you can outrightly ask it or prompt it to write code for you that doesn't have descriptions or explanations. And then depending on your level of knowledge of coding, you can read through and double check or run and test it and see what comes back and so on. So LLMs are useful for not just coding, but also teaching us and testing with things and producing test data and stuff like that. So if we're clever in the way we learn and develop our own minds, we can leverage all these different tools and means to improve our or empower. Since we're talking about empowering minds, empower our own minds, and then feed that learning back into the LLM, and as it teaches us, we can get better at prompting and so on. So it's a cycle that can help both the LLM work for us and us work for the LLM, and sort of like synergize between the two. Yeah.
Wonderful, Jason. Wonderful answer. Okay, so which languages should I start to learn when I start learning programming and coding? Of course, HTML and CSS, JavaScript are the main. So right now we have different kinds of trends we are following. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I mean, the in modern days, JavaScript had taken over everything. So Node.js, React, all these kind of frameworks. JavaScript became a very powerful uh, language framework, let's say, that can do both back-end processing as well as front-end interactions and processing and data manipulation and so on. And certainly, I think it's very useful. But in terms of creating apps that are uh, maintainable in the open world, let's say, and that can actually serve end users, right? I think it's still useful to learn languages like PHP and MySQL for database, or people talk about Python and stuff like that. That's useful. It really depends on what you want to work in. Some people want to create like native apps. There are different frameworks for that. Um, I always have been kind of like a LAMP stack, so Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, HTML, CSS, and bits of JavaScript. And I've built lots of apps like that work certainly for me and a bunch of other people that I wanted to serve. You can certainly build very nice websites using that, and it costs next to nothing to run it and host it. So like I think hosting costs are an important consideration in this. You can build a website in Node.js, and probably hosting of it will cost you a lot more than if you build it in PHP. So you really need to think about uh, the running costs of keeping a piece of digital property up. And if you happen to use cloud services to host your web app through, that's going to cost you a lot more than if you can just host it on a shared server somewhere, or even on your own little kind of machine that you can spring up and put online, and it's good enough. Because un, it's a very unlikely that you're going to build a service or a startup that's going to have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of users. And if you have that so to say problem, that's a very nice problem to have. It means you built something that lots of people want to use. So at that point, you're probably going to be raising money and having money and maybe earning money from those people that will then give you ability to scale up and recode to something else that can scale up better and work in a more sort of like scalable way. So, and that's really how coincidentally all the big services like Facebook and YouTube and so on were recoded for scaling up, depending on the demand that they were generating. I mean, Facebook today still runs on PHP on the back end. So, if it's good for Facebook with 2 billion plus users, it's good for anything else. Yeah.
Wonderful. This. I visited your profile and I saw a post of yours where you'd say, I'm making the most fun and productivity improving software. So I would love to know about this project of yours, what you're making.
Yeah, so about 15 years ago or so, way before any of these kind of project management tools existed, because I was running my own web design agency, and I realized I'm having multiple clients, and to actually be able to deliver work to them, I need to reduce the amount of time I spend on the phone with them talking, and giving them updates and reports as to where I'm at with my progress. It would be much better if I had an app that where I would be able to host and store all the kind of tasks of things that I need to do in order to deliver a project, and then say to the client, look, instead of calling me and saying, how far are you done? What's the percentage remaining? What else are you working on right now? What have you done yesterday? What have you done last week? I just kind of coded an app that answered all those questions by the client logging onto it and just taking a look, right? And be able to comment on things. Hey, this is not quite finished, or can you add this as well? Or, we need this, or this is no longer relevant, etc. So, and this was way before Trello, Asana, Jira, GitHub, GitLab, all these kind of tools for tracking tasks and projects. And that worked for a long time. And then because, I'd written the code 15 years ago, and all these kind of systems got updated underneath, PHP went a few versions up and all that stuff. So eventually that stopped working. And I thought, I probably need to change a couple of lines of code and it will work again. And then when I sort of pulled the code down again and looked at it, I was like, this needs a complete rewrite, but I don't really have time to do this. But I started noticing that all the kind of tools like Trello and all these things, they weren't really working for me the way I like to work. And also they were increasingly starting to ask for payments. It's like I have to pay for my own user. And then if I want to add some other people, I have to pay for them as well. Or they have to pay. And it's like, before you even know, if you've got like, I don't know, $10 a month subscription, and then you got 10 users, that's like $100 a month. And before I even know, I have to pay something else to use it all the time. And it's not really quite working the way I want. And if I want to scale up to more and more users, it's going to be very costly. So I didn't like that idea. And then at one point, so 3 months ago or so, I just bit the bullet and said, I'm going to start recoding instead of like trying to fix it, I'm going to actually bite the bullet and start recoding it from scratch. But then I realized, oh, now we got Chat GPT, and a lot of things that in the past I would take some time, like complex SQL queries and all that stuff. It would usually take me like a couple of hours to just kind of churn through, and you have to kind of focus on it. Now I can just cleverly set a query to Chat GPT, and it gives it back to me in like 3 seconds, and then I can paste that in and go, it works, done. Right? And so I was able to very quickly recode and redevelop my app uh, to be a lot better in terms of UX design. UI design works very nicely across different devices, right? It's got a lot more kind of clever interactions, keyboard shortcuts, way to track time that's spent, commenting, uh, you know, uh, assigning things forward, back. But most importantly, the app enables me to focus on what's due today across multiple projects that I'm working on. And so that I can continuously be delivering on tasks and not have to switch between project views all the time and think, oh, hold on, what's next from there and next from there, which none of these other apps seem to give me like very clearly. So because basically all I care about is what's due today, what might be overdue. Okay, so I want to make sure that anything that's overdue I want to catch up with, deliver on my today, and be able to see what's upcoming tomorrow, right? Because I might want to, if I've delivered everything today nicely, then I'll do something from tomorrow right now, and that's it. And as I deal with things like that, I just am continuously productive and continuously delivering on my own promise. But I've broken everything down into small chunks of tasks that usually are less than an hour long, and I can just really kind of, because my concentration and and attention span is not that long, and I constantly get interrupted either by children or wife or clients or God knows what app and so on. So I'm lucky to have like 15 minutes to 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to do things. And if I can deliver on that, then I can do the next task, when I regather my energies and focus and so on. And that's actually the way, if you look at all the kind of productivity and habits kind of research, that's actually what works. The longest journey starts with a single step, and if you break 3,000-mile journey into number of steps, then you just need to deliver on those steps, and eventually you'll finish. And actually that's the fastest way to finish that journey. So yeah.
Wonderful. You explained it very well, Jesse. Thank you so much. Okay, I have again your profile showed me a session you were having about decision making. So I would love to ask a question from you that taking decisions in uncertain circumstances is hard. What would you advise on how to take sound decisions in tricky situations, and more importantly, to stand on those decisions? Your take on that.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most crucial questions, especially these days, because there's so many decisions that we need to make. Literally, almost like with every breath we take, there are decisions of, should I be doing this podcast, or should I go to bed, or should I, eat some food because tomorrow is fasting? Should I pray to Allah, or should I watch some video about AI and how AI is threatening our jobs? Or, should I worry about potentially oncoming World War III? Should I be building a bunker somewhere for nuclear war? And so all that kind of stuff, right? So there's so many different things that we can be exposed to and take into account, and then have to make decisions as to what next. Yeah. So I think it's really important to decide based on, I don't even want to say facts, but what we know is what we have knowledge about, based on knowledge, as opposed to based on assumption, and based on uh, certainly you don't want to make decisions based on wishful thinking and on sort of fantasy. Yeah. uh, so so it's really important to tune into what's real and what we know is real, and make decisions based on that, and understand that every decision has a probabilistic factor to it of the likelihood of certain things happening and the impact that those things will have. So for example, if we decide to um, take a certain job, okay, um, that there's always like a chance of it not happening. Even if you say I accept the job or you go for it, you accept, there's always a chance that the employer might say, well, we actually don't want you. This happened to me during pandemic, where I kind of got a very nice client contract lined up, and they said, we loved you, your interview was great, blah blah blah, and they're like, we're sending the contract next week. And then the pandemic hit, and they said, like, we're not actually sending any contract, we're not hiring anyone, it's game over, right? So it went from like, yeah, let's go, to, oh no, what am I going to do? I've got literally no income coming in. um, and if that does go ahead, what is the impact it's going to have on me and the client in the future, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a kind of risk assessment and risk matrix that we can run everything through, and our decisions should be done based on uh, lowest risk, highest impact kind of decision making matrix. I think there's even like something called Eisenhower matrix that you can sort of choose what to prioritize and what to decide to work on and what to basically ignore. So it's worth researching these things and actually create a sort of decision making system for ourselves, to then say that if we're ever unsure or we can like get confused, we can sort of just go through that decision making process. And my tool that I'm coding, and it's still, now I'm using the tool to help me decide and prioritize what I want to build into that tool further, right? So for example, the projects that I have, I'm going to be kind of prioritizing those projects based on how important I think they are. Because for example, I might be working on a project of just like improving the garden outside, okay, but that's just a sort of like a nice to have. It's not going to really change anything. It's just a nice to have thing. So that's not as important as my daughter's tennis career, for example, which is probably going to be incredibly important, but it's not really as important as me making sure that I've got client income coming through, okay, because that funnel like feeds everything else, okay. So I want to prioritize the client work first, then probably my daughter's tennis career second, and then any kind of gardening, or might be like doing some arts and crafts and just to have fun. And then as I assign tasks into those projects, the tasks that come in for me to do on today will be prioritized based on the priority of the projects that I put them into. Okay, so anything to do with clients, we're going to have to be first, daughter's tennis career second, and any sort of gardening and others third. Okay, and as I build that decision support system, basically, yeah, and sort of self accountability system, the more I can just kind of trust the system and trust the process, and then just focus on delivering through that, as I've kind of assigned my own priorities and matrix of um, um, risk management, let's say. No?
Wonderful, Jason. Your explanation power, I guess, is very, very rich and very good. You with the examples you give is very, very relevant and very understandable.
Well, so look, this I've spent long time thinking about this stuff. When I was studying Carl Sagan Cosmos, right? A lot of the um, discussion in scientific literature is really about like the orders of precedence, okay? And it's like something like law of gravity, okay, is something that works upon all of us, right? And you know it's just there. Okay, so we got to take it into account, okay. And and work with it. Okay, but okay, maybe you might say, well, how does the law of gravity apply to my business or regular life? Is just given. Okay, some of those things are kind of so deep down in the fabric of the universe that you sort of, you just live with it. You don't even sort of take account of it. But when it comes to higher order things, like for example, where is my next payment, like income, coming from if I don't have a job or I don't have a client? You then having to understand, okay, what do I put most effort into in order to get a client or a paying job or some sort of like income? Okay, and then you're having to start understanding, okay, well, unless I put some effort into these things, it's not just gonna come to me. Even in Islam, there is the thing of like, Allah says to us, look after yourself and I'll look after you too, right? It's like you can't just sort of pray to God and think it's just all going to happen automatically. You still have to put effort in to make things happen. And if you are praying to God and putting effort in, those things will come together and work out the best. Okay. So, um, a lot of people do one or the other. Okay, and these things are not exclusive. Like you can uh, put intents into higher powers like the god, but you can also put effort into yourself and push forward and trust that God is going to help you and enable you to achieve that. So I've always been like that. And that's why I think also things like science and spirituality, or, belief in God, they reconcile, because God deals with all the unknowns and science deals with all the kind of knowns, so that we can observe and measure. If you bring those two together, you actually get a much more comprehensive understanding of the universe, as opposed to just going, there is no God, that's irrelevant, or science is irrelevant, it's all God. It's like both is important. Yeah.
Wonderful. Just do you have 5 more minutes for me, or?
Yeah, I can go for as long as you like. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jason. Okay, can you tell me three important evolutions we recently have, which you think would make history and our next generation would be talking about it? That in 2023, 2024, these evolutions uh, came into this world, and specifically in technology.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about evolution or revolution of AI, artificial intelligence, is so big that it's impacting so many different aspects of our lives, from the most unforeseeable things, like um, AI being able to detect and understand and process and comprehend emotions. That's already been solved to a great extent, where people were saying AI is not going to be able to deal with emotions. Emotions are too fluffy and unexplainable or hard to detect, or it, so only humans really understand emotions. Um, it's not really true. You could argue that humans don't really understand emotions. That's why we're so often confused. If you're married, a man married to a wife, you'll often be confused as to what your wife is feeling. Yeah, because you just don't have the ability to detect. However empathetic you are and compassionate, you still don't understand the emotions. And arguably she does not understand your emotions. When you're quiet and not saying anything, she might just think you're bored or something, but deep down you might be angry, really, really angry, but you're trying to just sort of suppress that so that you don't lash out. And so she might just think you're just being distanced, or not disinterested, but actually deep down you're angry, and it's kind of all layers of things. And similarly, if she is crying, you might think that she's weak, but she's actually feeling um, neglected, by you. She's not being heard, and so on. So you might say, "Oh, you're being weak," and she's saying, "No, I'm actually needing to be listened to and cared for." Right, and this is my way of showing that. And so we don't actually understand emotions, right? You find that potentially AI understands emotions much better through things like statement analysis, understanding the meaning of words, and through tonal inferences, understanding the tone. So if I say goodbye, that's really angry way of saying goodbye. That's a kind of loving way of doing the same thing and same word, but the tonal and meaning and emotions behind it is very, very different. Uh, so so that's like one of the things that's big. And AI, like I say, impacts on so many different aspects, from operational improvements through to productivity, through the emotions, the creativity of like visuals, video, music, text, of course, coding, all this stuff. So it's really a massive shift of human ability across the board. And as such, I think any kind of, when you say three evolutions, it's like this is one massive evolution that encompasses almost everything, really. And it's getting much, much faster. And as AI moves into robotics, it becomes a thing that can impact on the real world as well, with AI robots being able to do human jobs and automate a lot of human functionality, that really was kind of akin to slavery. Anyone who's been working in the field, even if they get paid, for always picking strawberries and stuff, that's really backbreaking and hard work and boring over time. So, if we can get robots to do that, then it's question what else can the humans do on the higher value input of the chain of processing and operations. So I think that's just like one thing that's worth pointing out, and to say that that's actually impacting on many more than just three things in life. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Jason. Remember, I was talking about Rehan School in when we start
Hmm.
talking here. So Rehan School is now coming to online also. So we cater students from all over the world, and
Hmm.
we teach them online. All the things we teach physically here in Pakistan,
Hmm.
we teach them all online to all over the world students. And there's a website of it called Rehan.education,
Hmm.
and from there you will find our founder Rehan Alawala's
Hmm.
letter, where he described all the curriculum of the school and his vision and what we are going to teach there.
Hmm.
So I would request you to visit this and read that letter. You'll find that very
Hmm.
interesting how Sir Rehan is, shifting the
Hmm.
paradigm of education, especially in Pakistan and all over the world.
Hmm. So, one thing I've got to say about Pakistan specifically is that it's such a massive country in terms of population, and the nature of Pakistani people as people is that, and from what I've gathered and seen, you are an example, Rehan is an example, and lots of other Pakistani friends that I've got here in UK. Pakistan is very hardworking, determined, driven, dedicated, etc. And I think the more Pakistan as a nation and as population can work on increasing your overall education, not just in technical sense, but it also in financial sense, and management and operations and communication, and understanding the way society is, economics, all these things. Pakistan has got a massive, massive potential to be a country, nation, and society that can make massive impact on the world in a lot more significant way than it's making already. So yeah.
Inshallah, inshallah, Jason. Thank you so much for this wonderful statement. I hope so, and inshallah, this will happen in future, in near future, inshallah.
Mhm.
So, Jason, thank you so much for your wonderful time. Last question I would love to ask you, and I ask from every of my guests. This is my favorite question. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself?
Yeah, so the advice is to uh, research things based on the way I was describing, so far, research things, assess things, decide on things through structured matrices of risk management and probabilistic matrix decision making, and trust your own research and insights the most, because you are the governor of your own life. Of course, God, ultimately decides everything, but day to day, we're deciding for our own life, right? If I want to go and run in front of a bus, I can do that, right? But hopefully I'm going to be sane enough not to know not to do that. It's not wise. So similarly, I can also decide to invest into an educational program or invest into my own skills and put some time into learning how to code, as opposed to put some time to just watching some nonsense online it's just wasting my time. So the advice I'd give myself is, make your own matrix, improve it, create it in terms of decision making, decide everything through that, and make commitments and decisions through that, and stick to that, and don't let other people influence you much in terms of changing your mind around that. Because if you are making decisions based on other people's advice, usually unsolicited advice when you haven't asked for it, and you sort of just follow that and then it doesn't work out, you will really regret it, because you'll realize, I just followed the other person thinking that they're somehow smarter than me or better, and actually they are not, and they didn't care, they don't know as much, they haven't looked into it, and I went with that decision and it's not good for me and I'm going to regret it. So it was more like double down on your own choices and stick to them and understand the consequences. Yeah. So
So experience in your eyes is not countable in order to take any decision. If we consult from an experienced one, or should we do not consult and decide
yeah. So
on our own?
no. It's like I'm saying research, okay? And part of the research is to look into, scientific research so far, what the, science says, for example, what the, various kind of guidelines say. You certainly want to, if you're deciding on like investing into something, you have to really to be on the side of the law. You have to follow and understand the legal guidelines and regulations. You don't want to be doing anything illegal. So there's lots to learn in terms of context of what the system requires, what's going on in the society. Okay. Take advice from as many advisors and understand their input. Look at the research that exists. Look into yourself. What are you thinking? What are you caring about? What do you know based on your own experience? When you corroborate all of that, you would put that through your own matrix, and then you say, okay, based on everything that I've got access to, now I decide on whether I want to move forward with this thing or not. And it's not just based on me going, yeah, it just feels like a good idea, let's do it. No. It would be the decision made on consulting with everything that you can get insights from, okay, and then making your own decision. But what I'm saying is that don't just kind of ask your father-in-law or something, or like a neighbor next door, and say, should I do this? And then I don't think it's a good idea, it's too risky. And it's like, okay, I won't do it. And then 3 years later, if you did it, it would have been the best thing, but you didn't do it because your next door neighbor was scared of that thing, because they just felt like that. That would be a bad way to decide.
Wonderful, Jason. Again, your examples are amazing. Thank you so much, Jason, for this wonderful conversation and your time, which was really precious, and your presence, which I really enjoyed. Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rahmat, and salam alaikum to all the listeners. And yeah, keep in touch, and maybe let's do another one in a few months' time again, and see if my answers have changed, or if you got some other questions as well. Yeah,
Inshallah, Jason. Definitely will do another
inshallah.
time.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Take care. All the best. Bye bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you were watching Jason Grant. I hope you enjoyed this session as much as I did, and you have learned from Jason as much as I did. I'll see you the next time with next guest. Keep watching Empowering Minds on YouTube, X, LinkedIn, and and Facebook, of course. Facebook is my main channel. So Facebook. I'll see you next time with next guest. Keep doing amazing things. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.